working. Yes, it's working. Yes. Oh my god. Okay. So, welcome back to Google Docs. Not a lot of people on YouTube get to say that. But I do because I don't care. So, what happened since the last time we've been in here? Well, I've been actually playing Security Breach, and I will tell you, being in the actual environment and walking around it yourself really helps change your perspective. There's just one problem. I got stuck. I didn't really get stuck. It's just that um, it's that part where you need to go down that long corridor, and there's a load of staff bots there, and then there's Roxanne's there as well. That's just tedious. It's just tedious, and I haven't had the time for it lately because I've been wanting to get to other things. And really, what I ended up doing was, as you can see, I started working on the notes document, and I did this off camera. And you want to know why I did it off camera? It was because thunderstorms were coming in and out and everything, and it was just like, oh yeah, just turning the recording thing off and on again was just becoming a pain in the ass, and I wanted to listen to music while I was doing it, and I can't do that normally because of copyright. Do you understand why I don't live stream now? Do you really understand why I don't live stream now? Yeah, that's the reason why. So, I put the art in, and we have her notes in. I also wrote like little descriptions here, and I am going to read through these to you guys, um, because it's prep for something else. What we're really doing here is we're keeping track of our characters and like what's happened to them, what's significant about them, and basically just prefacing everything. It's like the exposition, essentially. Speaking of exposition, after this, the next thing we're going to tackle is our plot diagram. You ever heard those words? Plot diagram? I'm sure you have, and I'm sure that if you're of a certain age, it made you have war flashbacks just now. That or you're okay with it. Maybe, I don't know. I was introduced to the plot diagram when I was in middle school, and I already knew basically what they were talking about. But yeah, that's just it's taught differently in different places, like in different times as well. Like my dad was told, I think it was called, I think the resolution or the falling action or whatever it was called when I was taught. He was taught that it was the denouement. Anyway, so let's get to working with our characters. Um, so first up is Gregory, of course. Still has just the front-facing views. Oh, yeah, one more thing, real quick. I got the Tumblr going, so that means I'm going to be able to post this artwork, and you guys are going to be able to get a good look at it, and all that other stuff, and probably some additional things. I have made some changes to, like, I've made some decisions and changes since the question session video, which was basically, like, I changed my mind on a couple of things. Okay, for real this time. I should have written this like a laundry list of things to go down. Um, Gregory has I kept the design notes in, even though it's visible right here, just because it's stuff that like we keep it in mind. And while we're doing it, like for example, left-handed, that's something that we're keeping in mind while we're animating him, stuff like that. Basic notes about, his personality. Basically, I just kept all of the old notes that I had, I'm pretty sure. I hope I didn't accidentally delete any. I hope I don't forget. So, I might want to zoom out on this a bit so we can get the whole picture while I'm reading it. There we go. No, there we go. Alright. A homeless boy who has learned how to survive on his own after his parents were taken away. Gregory was taught how to live on the run and lay low at a very early age. He was forbidden from crying or making any such noises that would give away his position. As such, he is missing out on a lot of his childhood and maturing in nature far too early. Just checked to make sure my door was shut. Unlike his parents, Gregory has always been able to escape the police. His top priorities are necessities, and he makes little time for childish things in his life, though sometimes he can't help it but let himself live a little if he's presented with something he appreciates. Sorry for my stuttering there. So basically with Gregory, it's like that. He's pretty much a no messing around kind of a kid, but like sometimes when he's hanging out with Freddy, he's just like, okay, yeah, maybe I will hold this plushie. Maybe I will fiddle with this toy. Maybe I will, because he's a curious kid. It's kind of in his nature. I described him like holding a plushie and fiddling with a toy, and I just started just grabbing Sun by the face. God. The jingling was cries for help. Now, Gregory's personality, I specifically designed it in a way, well, it's not really designed it like that, but I did make sure that it was going to bounce off of Cassie in a certain way. There's no way I'm going to be able to read this while having the whole picture in the thing, because it's too long. I took some notes about her, some personality stuff. Like, of course, she loves Garrett. Who's Garrett? Poor Garrett, he's in a cake. She loves carrot cake. And her birthday is on the 11th. I'm not sure the 11th of what. I know one of the FNAF games, I think it was the second one, was released on the 11th of a certain month. But it's really not important. But it's like a very tiny detail. Her fear of heights. Now that is basically just me saying, okay, I did indeed go and listen to the unused lines. That's incredibly important because it, even though it's not technically in the source material, it still presents a whole new perspective in this sort of way. Like the fear of heights thing, I heard her say that, and my mind immediately flashed back to the Monty Golf level in which you were, or the Gator Golf level, Jesus, in which you were on those slippery catwalks. Jesus, just if you remember my footage from that, just that was nightmarish. And another thing, this relates to us changing the oh, that's outdated information. Sorry, that's probably most outdated information. Originally, I was going to have it so that she was hanging out in the daycare attendant's room, and then she comes out when, like, Moon attacks Gregory, but I changed my mind on that, because now I'm not sure, and it's probably not gonna happen. I don't know, maybe it will. But anyway, speaking of changes, I forgot about the Phaz wrench, when I was like, okay, well, Gregory has a Phaser Blaster, right? What if Cassie needs to have something? I just forgot about the Phaz wrench, and I ultimately realized that the presence of VANNI would not make sense. So, in some of the things that I've done, so I was like, okay, we're gonna have to omit that, unfortunately. But the Phaz wrench is pretty great because there is a way I can make it work here. So let's get started with Cassie. So, you can't see it, but there's a really annoying, like, green pixel line going through my monitor that's, like, right through some of the text. Okay. Alright. Since Cassie's father was a technician at the Pizzaplex, she was a regular... I don't know if I've ever said the term Pizzaplex out loud. I think I have, but for some reason when I said it that time, I like, my body went, why did you say that out loud? I was like, that sounded so goofy, but it's the point, man. I did not just cringe at myself. Cringe is dead, okay? Since Cassie's father was a technician at the Pizzaplex, she was a regular guest. When she was very small, she would spend a lot of time at the daycare, where she got to meet the new animatronic daycare attendant. I thought there was supposed to be a comma there. A comma and a the, but sorry. I did not proofread this for myself. I proofread it, but I didn't read it for myself. Watch me find an error. She got to meet the new animatronic daycare attendant. When she was finally big enough, she became incredibly skilled at the arcade games and activities around the Pizzaplex, especially Roxy Raceway. Her first actual birthday party there did not go as planned, with none of her friends showing up. Roxy, get out of here, Freddy. Okay, we're good. Roxy, her favorite character, was there to comfort her. Sometime after Bonnie's disappearance, her father found a new job out of the state, and her family plans to move with him. He strangely doesn't want Cassie to visit one last time, so she sets out in the middle of the night to do it herself. Taking a drink of water. I stutter more when my mouth is dry. I don't know why. So yeah, she doesn't know what's up, but she wants to say goodbye to, mainly Roxy, but the daycare attendant as well, and just overall everybody. She wants to say goodbye before she goes because, her dad isn't letting her know. She's kind of she's like that character that she's like not super. She's fearless in a sense of she's going to do something and she sets her mind to it, and then once she gets into it, she's like, oh my god, why did I do this? But she's determined, strong-willed, stuff like that, and she's more sympathetic towards the animatronics than Gregory is, because Gregory is like, it's a robot at first, at least, and then but she sees them as the art that they are, basically. And when you have that, when you're a kid and you have that, am I really going to use the word magic? No, I'm not. You're going to have that connection with characters like that when you're a kid. I know I have. That's kind of why I'm here. Okay, so Freddy's eager because of formatting and stuff to be talked about, so we're going to talk about Freddy next. I feel like I should no, should I say it? Should I say what I meant that last time that in that art video? Should I say it? No, I'm not. I'm decided I'm not gonna. Better safe than sorry. It was about how I accidentally designed Freddy to look way thicker than he was before. It was a mistake, believe it or not. So I wanted to put in this thing in the personality tab in which I said that he knows a lot of astronomy fun facts, and I had this idea for a scene where, like, it's not really a scene, but it's kind of like a back and forth between him and Eclipse, in which he knows about astronomy. Fazer Blast takes place in space, and he's an I love space kind of a guy, and so he looks at them and he says, he's like building it up, like, think of Po from Kung Fu Panda at the end of Kung Fu Panda when he's like trying to tell Master Shifu, like, you want to get something to eat, and he's like taking a breath in to speak and then shutting his mouth, changing his mind, doing it over and over again, and then eventually, because he's like, is this like a mansplaining or offensive thing to say? Like something like that. And then he looks at them and he goes, did you know did you know that the light of the moon is actually the light of the sun reflecting off of it? and then and then they just look at him and go, I don't know why it's making me giggle so much. Did you know that bears can purr? Just like, it's just, I don't know why, but it's really goofy to me, and it just makes me smile. Okay. And I bet my laughter was just not building it up. Just not building it up at all, but I'm incredibly giggly tonight. Okay, it's 7:14 p.m. Wow, I have never been corrected so fast by an inanimate object. Okay. Whew. Let's read Freddy's description. It's a little bigger. The biggest superstar in all of the Pizzaplex in the face of Fazbear Entertainment. Jesus. Freddy Fazbear. No, Jesus Christ is the face of Freddy Fazbear's Entertainment. Anyway. This fluffy, fun-loving bear is the life of the party. All he wishes is to make magical memories for all of the guests that visit the Pizzaplex. And though he tries his absolute best to be reassuring, he tends to struggle with change. He is very aware of the history of the business and strives to make sure that nothing akin to its troubled origins will ever happen again. Which makes me bring up the point that I'm still kind of like wondering like how true what happened in the original restaurant is in this specific retelling. Well, not retelling, but in this specific alternate universe. But hey, enough of me rambling. Let me read it. Freddy? Jeez, why did I write it like that? Okay. Freddy is very friendly and gets along well with all of the other animatronics at the Pizzaplex. When the news came that his closest companion Bonnie was going to be replaced by Monty, Freddy was looking forward to getting to know Monty better and welcomed him with open arms. He promised Bonnie, who seemed a little disappointed by the change, that he would frequently visit him at Bonnie Bowl. Freddy did indeed do this, but couldn't help but notice that Bonnie wasn't as happy as he used to be. Time was not helping him heal at all. Eventually, the fight between Bonnie and Monty left him to be decommissioned, but Freddy and his friends were not told that what exactly had happened. They were told that there was an accident in which Bonnie got himself too severely damaged somehow, though his intentions were unclear. Freddy was devastated, but did not. Let me start over. Freddy was. Let me start over. I sounded so mad. Freddy was devastated, but did not suspect malice from any of his friends for even a second. His greatest weakness is his unquestioning trust for them, basically. So he's pretty accurate to the source material. There's not much change going on here. It's not much change going on in the characters themselves and what I'm doing here, but there is a big change in the story, I think. Anyway, moving on. Oh, I should tell you something about this. I went back at one point. I changed my mind and I changed the buttons to blue, and then like I said in the video, in the art video, I was like, oh, I realized I was like, oh, I fucked up. These buttons should be blue, but then I was like, oh, I kind of like them better red, and then I thought, well, maybe I should try them blue, and I changed them to blue, and then I just ended up not liking it as much and changing it back to red. So this image has changed. These images have changed a lot, and this is a single PNG, so I had to like re-export this a lot. um, this is new. Well, there's two sentences here. That's confusing. Yes, but need maintenance. Yeah, we already acknowledged that with the pre-repaired versions. But the new one here is, after being repaired, Moon has a more relaxed and drowsy facial expression, though it's still mischievous in nature and often dons a Cheshire Cat look on his face. You see that he's got that grin. Without his evil eyes, he would probably just look like the Cheshire Cat in a sense, because that was like his original. Well, we'll get to that. Also knows a lot of astronomy stuff, but mostly in the form of jokes. There's so many. I took some basic astronomy courses last semester, so spring 2023, and I was sitting there and I was like thinking to myself, I can make so many jokes now. I did great on those classes. They were fun. Okay. I also want to say the music and motif note here is E. Lydian, and I'll talk about that more when we get to talking about the music, which is a long way away, but E. Lydian is the key/mode that the daycare theme is in. And basically what that means is that it's an E major, except there's the fourth note of the scale is a half step higher. I'm looking over at my piano. It's a half step higher. So, I won't demonstrate it now, but basically it goes E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. And I will tell you all about the theory of it when that's more appropriate. Okay. This one's rather small. A former performer of the Superstar Theater who is almost always has a smile on their face. Why did I say who is? Okay. First of all, former performer, that just goes to show that I never talk out loud when it comes to these things. A former performer of the Superstar Daycare who almost always has a smile on their face. This animatronic was able to double as both the caring, fun-loving sun and the tide-turning, mischievous moon in various shows, featuring their co-star, Foxy the Pirate Fox. Jeez. When it was decided that shows needed more variety and the Superstar Daycare attendants needed more assistance, Eclipse was given more commands in their programming to take on the new role of the daycare attendant. Though they were uncertain of their new role at first, they quickly adapted and grew to love it, even if they still needed to keep up the act that they were two separate entities rather than the same character. Much like Foxy and DJ Music Man, Eclipse has never left their area, but unlike them, they have never signed an autograph. Regardless of their current position, they still love to keep up their mischief. Whew. So, that was a lot of information in such a small little thing. Yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts. One thing that I'm really looking forward to with this project is how these characters are going to have, like, similar and extremely different experiences. A lot of them have been put through the same situation, but have had different outcomes and different feelings about those situations. And yeah, this is one of those characters that has gone through that kind of thing. And it will make more sense the more characters I talk about, so let's move on to Monty. Monty! I like Monty. I kept the Gator Hunch design note in here because, well, that'll be notable in the side views if you look at the decal art in game. Also, a lot of this, it's going to begin kind of like right around here with Monty, and you're going to see, in terms of what happened to Bonnie, the events are probably going to be restated a lot, but it's more so going to be because of how a specific character handled it or how they reacted to it and how they were involved in it, stuff like that. So you're going to hear a lot about what happened to Bonnie over and over and over again. And so just prepare yourself. Okay. Monty was originally created as an additional character to serve as the theme of the mini golf course of the Pizzaplex. He resided there until he replaced Bonnie for his greater popularity as he was a newer, fresher face. His tough attitude was known to be amusing to some and empowering to others. Most guests just see him as just plain cool. Having a reptile as part of the main band was exciting. Everything seemed to be going well until one night, during closing hours, Bonnie confronted Monty by making his way to Gator Golf himself. The argument escalated, which led to Monty nearly destroying Bonnie. Security was able to stop the fight, which Vanessa had caught on the cameras. They were both brought to Parts and Services, where he was repaired and inspected while Bonnie was kept in a safe spot away from him. After staff made sure that Monty was safe, he was deployed again, but the stress from the entire situation infuriated him. Not only was he under pressure for being part of the reason why a fellow animatronic was decommissioned, but it all happened due to a decision that wasn't even his, though he knows that he would have taken it if he was given the choice. This made him take his anger out on his surroundings, which made him a vulnerable target for the Bunnies Code. Okay, so one thing I just want to point this out. This is just an interesting piece of trivia that I've noticed. Amongst the main animatronics, essentially, I've noticed that most of them are based on animals that are either carnivores or omnivores. Meanwhile, Bonnie is the only herbivore, which was interesting. And like even if you go to like DJ Music Man, that's a spider or a person, which is both. They're both. They both. You know what I mean? They both. They both. You know, have that. They're, neither of those are herbivores. And then you have. Well, the sun doesn't eat much now, does it? That's a thing in space, but that's irrelevant. Unless you compare it to a human, then it's omnivorous. Anyway, let's focus on what we're actually talking about here. So this is where you start to see where Vanessa comes in, especially, and this kind of taps into like how Monty got into the situation that he's in. Because here's what I didn't understand from the source material, and I'm sure there's a way to explain it away, but I just didn't get it. It was like, okay, Monty replaced Bonnie by supposedly destroying him, and it's like, well, you know, there was a stage in Bonnie Bowl that implied, oh, Bonnie stands here. So it was kind of like the original Kids Cove, which was that's just where Foxy stood. And then you just have Bonnie's stage being inexplicably there, and there was like a back part of it that showed that like, oh, this is where he hangs out. That means he's been here for some time. And, you know, he resided in Bonnie Bowl, and then eventually he just went into Gator Golf or something. I guess he was... It's like, well, what made him go over there, first of all? What made him do that? Because it wasn't like... Like, it just, the stuff that, some of the details, it was like, it was telling us one thing, but at the same time it was telling another thing, and it's like, well, it's Five Nights at Freddy's, I don't know what I expected, but I just kind of thought that this particular way of telling the story would fit well with the theme of, like, oh, it wasn't Monty's choice to do this, but he knows for a fact that he would have taken that opportunity if he was given the option. Like, if it was a choice of his. And Bonnie is also a victim of something that he had no say in, and all this other stuff, and ultimately it just fit well with the theme. So that's kind of like what I'm going for here. And then I mentioned the Bunny's Code, and I'll tell you what which is title drop, hello, yeah, I will get to that. For now, let's talk about Chica. This design note here said something else before. I think I got it in the video. I don't remember. But it was just describing how I was like, oh, I want a fat chicken, and then I accidentally deleted it, and I was like, oh, fuck, what did it say before? It said something about her being a fat chicken, and it was like a normal note, and now it's not. Now it just says fat chicken, but fat is spelled in the jazz way. So, yeah, there's that. Ugh, I love how she came out, though. Let me take a sip before I get into this one, because I know it's long. Alright. The bright and bubbly guitarist of the main band, Chica is the only member of the original band that remains besides Freddy. She has always been the same, a rotund chicken with a love for pizza, though her enthusiasm for exercise was added later on, more so to get almond moms that don't even visit the Pizzaplex to stop bitching about it, to little to no avail. That was partly a joke, but I wanted to keep it's realistic. It's okay, moving on. Chica is just happy to help. She did not worry about being replaced, knowing that she would merely be moved to another part of the Pizzaplex, but after Bonnie's decommissioning, she's become a bit more anxious. The others reassure her that she will be alright no matter what happens. Chica tries her best to remain optimistic and accept the fact that what happened to Bonnie was an accident, but she doesn't roam as much as she used to in fear of hurting herself. She distracts herself from this anxiety by trusting that security will help her and keep her friends safe and focusing. Security will keep her friends safe. Her and her friends safe. Lord! Let me start again. She distracts herself from this anxiety by trusting that security will keep her and her friends safe and focusing on being herself. God, that's a little bit of a rusty sentence. I might rework that one. Chica, though I haven't written much, like this, I feel like this grasps basically what her role is. I definitely could write more, possibly, but I feel like this just states her role overall. Her perspective in this story with the theme is very important. And you guys are gonna be hearing me say the theme over and over and over and over and over again like a broken record, and it's gonna drive you crazy eventually. But yeah, I was thinking about how when we first got Security Breach, we saw how she reacted to seeing Freddy glitching out, basically, and on stage. And we noticed that she was the first to respond, and she was incredibly concerned about the whole thing. You could see her step in front of him to, like, check and make sure, like, check on him while that happened. And I really wanted to make a nod and just highlight for a moment her perspective on this, because she she loves Roxanne, she loves Monty, and they're technically replacements. We'll get into that more in a moment. But she, besides Freddy, who is the face of the whole thing, is he's not going anywhere. But something might happen to her. She's like not 100% certain, but she just wants to reassure herself that like no matter what, it's probably, hopefully, going to be the best. But she can't be 100% certain. She's just trying her best to distract herself from all that. So this is an exciting. I'm excited to work with this character. I really am. I'm excited to work with all of them, but this one is just. I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked. So that brings us to Roxanne, who you'll see what I mean. There goes my chair. The tough and fashionable guitar player of the main band. Roxy is a proud wolf who brings Jesus! I am not... What have I done to myself today? What did I do? I ate spicy ramen before doing this. That's what the problem is. Roxy is a proud wolf who brings confidence to her fans. Some folks consider her a replacement for Foxy, whom she has never even met, but she considers him to be completely separate from her. She's unaware that he feels the same way about her, but doesn't feel much harshness towards him since, again, she believes that they're irrelevant from each other. Sometimes the comments about it can be irritating, though. She was indifferent to Bonnie being moved to Bonnie Bowl, thinking that it was the right choice to have the more popular characters as part of the main band. She believed that Monty was a better fit and that bowling was more of Bonnie's speed, even thinking that Monty specializing in mini golf wasn't the best fit, and was legitimately surprised and disappointed that he was better at it than her. They sort of grew to have a bond akin to sibling rivalry, but it was all in good fun. It was nice not being the only replacement anymore. After Bonnie's disappearance, she was mostly unfazed, doubting anything like that would happen to her or her friends. She makes sure to be reassuring to Chica. She makes sure to be reassuring to Chica when she worries about it, though, reminding her that they are both adored and are well taken care of. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of talk about that. This is basically just reiterating a lot of my previous points, but this is like the character who is the least troubled about Bonnie's disappearance and suspects the absolute least. She's just like, shit happens, we gotta move on, and we gotta take care of ourselves, is basically her whole philosophy here, and she knows that the reasons that all these changes were made were because of popularity and stuff, and she is kind of just like, I can do this. I'm going to be fine. I know that these kids love me, and I'm a popular character, so I'll be fine. And Chica will be fine. Monty will be fine. Charlie will be fine. But so she's like the least bothered by the whole thing. But same with everyone. There's always a little bit of doubt in there, but not she has the least amount of it. Okay. And then we'll get to how she takes care of Cassie later. Okay, Vanessa, I'm excited. Why is there a blue line? Oh. Thank you. That's the one. I don't trust the blue lines in Google all the time, and some of you have probably had some run-ins and understand as to why I say that. If that's a sentence that makes sense to you. Okay. I'm just checking for more, just in case. Vanessa is a security guard working at the night shift. My eyes just went to the rest of the sentence. Vanessa is a security guard working the night shift at the Pizzaplex. Lord! Okay. She typically keeps watch. Give me a moment. She typically keeps watch over the cameras and heads out to help any children who may be lost, but that is a very rare occurrence. Most nights she never actually sees anything interesting, but one night she saw Bonnie, who had recently been moved from the main band to Bonnie Bowl, entering Gator Golf. Through the cameras, she watched them argue about Monty replacing Bonnie, but she didn't report the incident until it turned into a fight. Security separated the fight, and higher-ups asked her to explain everything that she had seen while they watched the footage. After Bonnie teamed up with the Mimic, oh god, it sought out to kill her, but instead found one of her homemade costumes, it's a fursuit really, and decided to wear it to potentially ruin her life and her reputation before her death. Vanessa is unaware of this until she sees it walking around herself on the security cameras. She isn't sure if she's seeing things or if it has something to do with the mysterious disappearance of Bonnie's body, which she has been tasked with trying to solve alongside other security guards. So basically, here's I'm gonna jump back to Gregory real quick. After I check this direct message from someone I'm working with, as I'm almost certain that's what that is. It's not. Never mind, it's one of my friends. What is this? I'm actually going to pause the recording and show you what they sent me. I can't believe it's relevant to what we're doing. Okay, so the reason why I want to make a quick note here. You'll notice that Vanessa's changed a lot. The whole thing about the virtual reality, the augmented reality, whatever the hell it is just not here. Is because this whole thing about, I think I mentioned this before, but I think it was in one of my videos. The whole thing about Gregory being connected to this whole thing and connected to Vanessa while they were doing this mind controlling shit or something like that. I would rather, I think it would be better, if, like, this was just people who just happen to be caught up in this shit and not, like, oh, I would just rather them be like these people who were caught up in this bullshit situation rather than just being William Afton's first cousin once removed or whatever. Like, like just all of this everybody's connected kind of a thing. It just didn't work well with the theme because I wanted it to be like the most unsuspecting people will become victims of this kind of thing is what I wanted to go for. That's why Gregory's homeless and everything. And the same goes for Vanessa. She's just trying to get by. She doesn't she used to go, like, I missed this part. Vanessa used to be a regular guest at one of the older locations, and she recalls hearing of the new development of the Pizzaplex. She thought it looked interesting at least. Like she was just like, yeah, I'm familiar with this place. I've been here, done that, but like, it's not like I almost died there once. It was like, the history of the place was like almost completely normal. Besides, like, probably the original thing because that's almost sacred things to touch. But other than that, I'm just like, I'm done with these fucking people. I'm done with them. I'm done with them. I'm done with the Aftons. It's not that I don't like them and I don't like their story. It's not any of that. It's just because I want to tell something new and different because, again, the fucking theme. Okay? That's literally it. And I think I've ranted about that before, but that's just this specific thing. And let this be a piece of advice for you if you're writing something like this. I'm also writing it's pretty much written, I'm just tweaking it. This this web comic that's basically an alternate universe / retelling of Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls. And I wanted to do something weird in which I was like, I'm gonna grasp like as many characters as I can into this thing, in which I try to make it like, I asked the question, like, what if Ultra Despair Girls, instead of being a spinoff, was like the end of the Danganronpa story or the franchise or something like that? So I included a fuck ton of characters, right? But then I was like, oh, I'm not including this one. I'm not giving this one as much screen time as you really could have. And it's like, fuck off. That's not their story. All the popular characters have so much stuff to their name. They have so many different people telling different stories and all this other shit, and it's all, it's kind of, it's great. It's great, but it's like these other characters need a moment for them to really like try and achieve some kind of potential that we know that they could achieve. So I hard focused on those characters and just let everybody else like take a break for a minute, because even though somebody's probably gonna bitch and moan about it and be like, where's this guy, where's that guy, they were important to the lore, I don't fucking care. Like, it's the time for the underdogs, baby, and boy howdy are we gonna fucking do it. Which is a funny ass thing for me to say when the daycare attendant is one of the main fucking characters of this thing. Now, I will say one thing. The ratio of like canonical content to fan content made about this specific character is astronomical. Like, no pun intended. But like, it's just amazing how, like, absolutely all that shit came from borderline nothing. Like, literally, after the whole Eclipse thing, we were playing it, you probably heard me say it, I was like, I wonder if Eclipse is gonna come back. And the answer to that question was no! It was no, it didn't happen. It was just like, oh, that was it? Like, it was like, yay! Oh, that was it? It was like that bit from Game Grumps. I was just like, what the... Okay, there we go. It's just like it's a little bit different from the original game, though, because, like, in the original game, it's like you beat Moon in the daycare, and then the next thing you know, you're haunted by Moon for the rest of the fucking game. Except that's kind of how it is with all the animatronics that you beat. It's like you beat them, and then they're still there. But anyway, you don't get to say that about a lot of. You don't get to say that about a lot of video games. Props to them for doing that bold ass move. Fauci. Let's talk about Fauci. Okay. He's still in Kids Cove. Used to be performing this. I could probably take these notes out, but I'm gonna have to. Ooh. Shit. Get down there. Okay. So, this note right here, what the fuck is this, you ask? I had an idea, and I'm not sure how much I'm gonna go through with it, but I was like, okay, Foxy has an accordion, right? He'd be fucking better. And I'm thinking, what would be, like, a subtle, like, relevant to the thing going on right now, way to just use music in a sense? Like, and I was like, well, Greensleeves is about being, you know, denied, casted away. There's a whole, like, you can read about it. It's basically like this guy was rejected and stuff, by a woman that he loves, which is like, there's like whole debates about the origins of it, but I don't care. And I was like, well, that kind of reminds me of, like, you know, being casted off discourteously. I was like, that kind of reminds me of what I'm doing right now. It's a stretch, but it's probably something that someone can make a connection to. I made the connection. Still a stretch, but, you know. And I was like, B minor would probably be a good key to represent this in because, you know, B for Bonnie, B for Bunny, B for bitches. And so we're going to go and just maybe potentially have that be there. And it's not going to be like, oh, look, I'm playing Greensleeves. It's going to be like, that's just a small little tidbit for people to catch. A lot of the things that you're reading right now, some of them are going to be way more subtle than, they're not going to be, like, said outright. They're going to be, like, you could catch the thought in the character's facial expression changing or something like that, or their behavior changing. And you're going to have to watch out for that. And I know you're the Five Nights at Freddy's fandom, so I know you're good at catching small details, and you're good at reading into things, so I'm going to trust you guys with that. Okay? I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, I think, if I remember. So, let's talk about Foxy. Foxy was once a performer at the Superstar Theater alongside Eclipse. His shows were the only ones running, and after a while, more variety was needed and Foxy needed a break. Management decided in a two birds with one stone kind of a situation to move Foxy to Kids Cove. Is it kids with an apostrophe? I don't actually know. Like, that just occurred to me. I don't actually know. I'm gonna have to, let me Google that real quick. Just so that I know for a fact. I'm just gonna say. Oh. There is an apostrophe. Okay, we're good. It is possessive. Okay. Management decided, in a two birds with one stone kind of a situation, to move Foxy to Kids Cove as an entertainer, much like his original self, and to move Eclipse to the Superstar Daycare. Though Kids Cove and the Superstar Daycare are connected, the two animatronics haven't seen each other ever since. Foxy is happy with his current role in his area, unlike Bonnie, who once visited him after being moved to Bonnie Ball. Foxy didn't really understand Bonnie's plight, although, oh dear. Foxy didn't really understand Bonnie's plight, especially considering that Foxy, though he was technically part of the main gang, was never truly treated as such, and... It's not and, okay. He was never truly treated as such, as he was always in a separate area from the main three. Foxy honestly did not see the issue, as he was still a beloved entertainer for guests. He does not consider Roxy, whom he has never even met, to be his replacement. He does not consider Roxy, who he has never met, his replacement, and sees her as I'm dyslexic as fuck, and sees her as her own character, completely separate from him despite their similarities. So he feels the same way. After hearing about Bonnie's decommissioning, he can't help but wonder if he should have said something more reassuring to him. Regardless, he still believes that while Bonnie had the right to be upset, he had taken it too far. So, Foxy doesn't give a fuck, basically. Foxy doesn't give a fuck. Look at all the fucks that Foxy gives. Look at all the fucks that Foxy gives. Yeah, he's pretty chill in terms of what his situation is. He's like, it is what it is. What can you do about it? Honestly, you're probably just better off just dealing with it, which is another thing that's like another attitude that goes on in the kind of situation that I'm tackling with the theme, and I'm loving how it's coming together. Can you fucking tell? I'm nerding out about it already. So now we have to talk about Vanny / Mimic / Rocky the Tiger. Rocky the Tiger is a name that I just threw on there because I was like, Tiger Rock, huh? I really did. I went in and I read it. I read what happened. And I just figured out, like, how I'm going to make this work. There are some changes. Just don't throw the Mimic at me like it's the Bible, please, okay? Not even able to listen to it. So, one thing about this character I want to point out really quick. Music motif C# minor. Why? It could also be C# Dorian. I won't explain the difference right now. But C# minor is more important than you may realize. It is the key that the first Living Tombstone song was, Five Nights at Freddy's song was in. I caught this in the movie trailer, by the way, like the actual Five Nights at Freddy's movie trailer, when they took the Toreador theme, and it played like a couple of times, right? And then it did a key change, and it started playing in C# minor, which is the same key as the Living Tombstone song, right? And I was like, oh, what a nice little thing there. But the thing about C# is that not only is it a nod to that, but it's also like, it mentioned in the Mimic story that he was written, like his code was like a combination of something and C++, and C++ is a coding language that often gets compared to the coding language of C#, with C# being more advanced and C++ being less advanced. So with C#, it was kind of saying like, oh, it's more advanced, even though the two languages can tend to be used for different things, but still, it's just the most esoteric reference possible. Another thing. Actually, you know what? I'll point this out after I read this. Let me turn on my light first. Okay, so let's read the description, as best as I can, of this specific character. The Mimic was created by Edwin Murray sometime in the 1980s as a caretaker for his 4-year-old son David while he worked on creating animatronic mechs for an upcoming restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's actually Pizzeria, isn't it? Whatever. He wanted to experiment with machine learning and mimicry. After successfully creating and programming the mech, he went on to create a suit for the character based on a tiger plush that David carried everywhere with him. Just based on a tiger plush that David carried everywhere with him to make it appear more approachable. David named it Rocky. Rocky learned a lot of its behavior from David, but it also learned a lot about machinery programming and the creation of animatronics from watching Edwin work, which they would both do together quite frequently. The only thing Rocky didn't know how to do was to... what in the world did I write? The only thing Rocky didn't know how to do was to actually protect David from danger that wasn't taught to recognize. And one day, David had wandered into the road only to be hit and killed by a car. Edwin, realizing that he was neglecting his only son, attacked Rocky in his own self-hatred, seeing it as the reason that his son was dead. To him, it represented his work that was distracting him and his failure to care for his son. He tore off its fur and beat it with a metal rod. this is where things get a little bit different. It retaliated, killing him, the very person who had taught it the violence that it immediately used against him. It immediately set out to create more weapons to defend itself, upgrading its own body by making it capable of recording and mimicking voices, and adjusting its own form. It resided in its place for many years until the studio was demolished. It was a studio. I wrote that down and then I looked it up and I read it and it was a factory, but then I was just like, studio, I guess. It's just it makes a little bit more sense. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just, well, a factory can be a studio. Fuck it, it's a studio right now. It can be a studio that's a factory that's a studio. Who gives a shit? It's called a studio in this because of simplicity, okay? Was demolished to make way for future construction, namely the Pizzaplex. So it's fucking right there, baby! And it... Why am I giggling so much? This is grim as shit. Okay. It remained in hiding but observed the place closely. It managed to creep its way to parts and service, blending in with spare mechs where it found a heavily damaged Bonnie. It took Bonnie away and repaired him, to which they exchanged stories. Together they vowed to take revenge and create the Bunny's code using the Mimic's knowledge of programming and machinery and Bonnie's knowledge of the Pizzaplex itself. It currently resides in one of Vanessa's fursuits, which it had stolen not only to finally have skin again, but to pin the blame on her for any crime it commits while wearing it, aiming to ruin her life and her reputation instead of merely killing her. Bonnie doesn't know it, but the Mimic would even kill a child. Violence is almost all it knows now. Okay, so, there is something that I said here, and it's the whole thing about it used to be a caretaker, basically. And I wanted to go into this thing where it was like, okay, if you remember what I said about the daycare attendant, it was like, let me see if I can get my precise words. It was uncertain of their new role at first. And so, it's kind of going through this thing where they're like, I don't know if I can do it. Meanwhile, this son of a bitch over here is just completely failing, and then they have that sort of, they hear the story, and they have that epiphany of like, oh, I'm way better than this guy. I'm way, way better than this thing. Like, there's definitely a connection here. It could probably, but at the same time, they could probably, like, relate to it in the sense of, like, oh, they've experienced my worst fear. Basically, it's experienced my worst fear of, like, failing as a caretaker to the point where, like, it actually gets, a kid, like, killed or severely injured or something like that. And that's basically the daycare attendant's worst goddamn fear. Why wouldn't it be? It's everybody's worst fear if you're caring for something that it would just be totally destroyed like that. And that's where I'm going to nerd out about music again, because C sharp minor and E major, which is the closest related key to E Lydian, because it's only one extra sharp, are the same. C sharp minor is 4 sharps, E major, 4 sharps. And if you add that extra 5th sharp, you're golden, basically. It's like there is going to be a shift in the music and a shift in the facial expression. It's gonna be there. It's gonna be subtle, but I'm gonna fucking put it in there. So help me God. Yeah. The whole thing about the fursuit. It's art. Okay, so let's carry on with that. Bonnie is just as. Oh my God, that's a lot to read. Ugh. Bonnie had been the bassist of Freddie's band since the original pizzeria opened many years ago, so having him retire to another part of the Pizzaplex was a jarring and difficult change. He had heard that it was due to his declining popularity and the need for a fresh and new face in the main band. At first, Bonnie tried to adjust to his new life as a performer in his own area, Bonnie Bowl, but he was still hurt by the change. Visits from Freddie helped, but he missed performing with him. He sought out and spoke with Foxy, hoping that he would have some kind of empathy given his similar situation, but Foxy did not feel the same way that Bonnie did. Almost hopeless, Bonnie went to confront Monty himself, but his anger took over him and they broke out into a fight. Bonnie was almost completely destroyed by Monty, but the fight broke up once security got involved. Vanessa, the guard who had reported the incident, told the rest of the crew everything that she saw, including what caused the fight. This, plus the costly damage that was done to Bonnie's mech and the shell, led the executives ultimately to led the executives. So this Google Docs. You didn't catch that? Google Doc. Anyway. Led the executives to ultimately decide to have Bonnie decommissioned and gradually remove any imagery of him from the Pizzaplex. Bonnie had heard everything, but before his salvageable parts could be repurposed, he was dragged away by what he later found out would be the Mimic. Was the Mimic? I think it would be a better word here. Excuse me. Excuse me. Whew. The Mimic repairs him to the best of its ability and tells him what happened to it. Sympathizing with the Mimic, Bonnie decides to team up with it and exact revenge. Together they created the Bunny's Code. If he can't have his place, no one can, and they all deserve to know his pain after doing nothing to help him. That's my villain, boy. Alright, that's the kind of thing that I want here. A sympathetic villain, but ultimately just like, you could have made so many better choices. It's that fine ground between out with the old, in with the new, but the old is fighting back, except the old has some good points, but, you know, if you're just gonna end up hurting people and stuff, Jesus, it's so juicy. There's just so much stuff going on about preservation of the sacred, or the borderline sacred, preservation of the old, but making way with the new, accommodating for everything, all this other shit, and it will make so much more sense. After I explain DJ Music Man, I'll explain to you what the fuck the Bunny's Code is, because I've mentioned it twice now and I haven't told you what it is. Okay. Okay. So DJ Music Man, super easy. He's just a cool guy. He's a cool guy that sees a lot and knows a lot, particularly about Fazcade, because he lives there. He has seen every cabinet that has moved in and out of the arcade. He just can't talk. He's also very friendly. He's such a nice fellow. He's basically like the character they go to for information, except he can't talk. It's gotta be a comic releasing at this point. His relevance, and you're wondering why would they bother to go out of their way to go to Fazcade? I'll tell you why, because I'm going to explain the Bunny's Code now. Okay. The Bunny's Code is a code created by the Mimic and Bonnie in which infected programs, usually those of animatronics, will adopt the same violent behaviors of the Mimic without actually altering the animatronic's personality. It is delivered primarily via an infected Faz wrench. It can also infect computers and arcade cabinets, but will have different effects. With most games, it will either remain idle or freeze them until it's removed. Except the Princess Quest games. I'm slowly figuring it out. And this was the kind of thing where I wanted them to have, like, a desire to solve this mystery while avoiding all of this chaos. Which is, it's like we have our story here. There is so much, well, we don't have the story. We have our characters. We have our set pieces. We just now have to figure out what the story is. And that is the next thing. The next thing is, you may have noticed also that I have been using the term mechs and not endoskeletons. And that's just because that's what they are actually called in real life. But, you know, endoskeleton to me feels more like a character or a type of character in a sense, and mech is like what it is. You know what I mean? I don't even know what I mean. I just kind of wanted to use the term mechs instead of endoskeletons for some reason. Makes it feel a little bit more humble, if you ask me. But anyway, questions. The old question session. Look at how much has changed already. All right. Dun, dun, dun. It's the plot diagram. That's the next thing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out like our beginning, our middle, and end of the story when we get around to that. We're gonna be letting this stew for a bit so that we can really think about how we want to do these things. A lot of times it's just taking tiny notes, and oh my god, I'm so excited for this. I had to stop myself from jumping straight into it because it's 8 o'clock. Oh my god. Ooh. Ooh. I'm looking forward to this. I have an idea. I will tell you one thing right now. I know how it begins. I know some pieces of the middle, and I know part of the climax. Well, actually, I know the resolution, but I don't know the climax all that well. There are still some choices I'm kind of tossing around where it's like, do I want this to happen or that to happen? But I know what the resolution is, or the falling action. A little bit of the falling action, a little bit of the resolution. But I really need that climax. And, um, yeah. This is what I'm curious. Like, okay, so if you guys are looking at this plot diagram right now, and you're like, oh, some of these terms are different from how I was taught it, could you just tell me what those differences are? Because I am so curious. Because like you don't have to like state like how old you are or what kind of school you went to. I just don't care. I just want to know if there was a difference. Oh, excuse me. And so this is how I was taught. It was exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. I'll get more to those terms and what they mean eventually if you're unfamiliar with it, but you can probably piece together what it means. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we're good for now, and I'm not gonna do like a long goodbye. I'm gonna do a different kind of goodbye in which I just scroll up to the top of the document and then I end the video like